I often think about the fact, is there a point, am I maybe even at a point now where my body is going to sort of start decreasing like at a faster rate than my knowledge of jiu-jitsu is increasing? So like in regard to my output on the mats and my performance, am I the best now that I'm ever going to be? Even if my jiu-jitsu knowledge increases because my body is getting older, is this me?
That's a great question, because my jiu-jitsu now at 56 looks different than when I was in my early 40s. Just the techniques that I choose to do now, how I think about those techniques, what I'm willing to, like, how hard I'm willing to squeeze them, that kind of thing. So like, I was always kind of a crazy kind of grappler. Like, I like to do cartwheels over people, do a lot of kind of very athletic jujitsu. I was a very athletic practitioner. I'd rely more on athleticism than even probably technique. Like, if you think about, on one side, you have leverage, timing, and technique. On the other side, you have athleticism, strength, and speed. I was definitely on the physicality side more than I was on the technique side. But as I've gotten older now, I appreciate the technique way more now than I did when I was a younger practitioner. And I appreciate the simplicity of a technique now way more than I did before. I appreciate like slowing shit down and like really being more mechanical and technical. Like, I feel like that's way more rewarding when I'm rolling with somebody and I slow the whole game down and tap them out like super slow. I feel like that, and it resonates with me. Like, I feel like, wow, that's way cooler than if I get sucked into their 100 miles an hour grappling and then I'm exhausted and then I throw up a technique on them, then I'm freaking tired and I can't finish the round or don't want to finish the round. That doesn't feel like a sustainable practice for me. So as I've gotten older, I've just adjusted the volume of my game. The frequency of the game, how often I can grapple. Like I said before, maybe it's 1 week, it'll be 20 rounds or every single day. And then there's a week, maybe it's going to be a lot less rounds that week. So I'm open to all possibilities with it. I don't try to like let my ego like kind of reign supreme. Like I said, I don't trust my ego. I trust my body. My ego is going to say, roll every day. Come on, you little fucking pussy. Like, you need to get out there and kill yourself. Right. Like, I can't listen to that guy anymore because he's going to get me into a lot of trouble now. You know what I mean? So versus like the actual, like, the value of age, part of age is wisdom, right? You've lived a lot of life experience. You can look back and say, oh, the last time I did that, I got hurt doing that. So I just adjust the frequency and the volume now more than anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's maybe just sort of break down, I guess, some of the different components of I guess, jiu-jitsu, from the training, nutrition, the supplementary exercise, the recovery, and maybe offer some advice to our sort of listeners who are maybe around this sort of age now and are maybe struggling a little bit physically. So you just kind of covered a little bit there, but when you think about, I guess, going to a session, what is the advice to somebody who's maybe sort of beyond 40 or after 40 doing jiu-jitsu, in regard to how they approach that session? Is it picking your partner smartly? Is it taking rounds off? What's your advice?
I think it's all of that. I think when we're talking about like showing up for the open mat, you've got to be mindful about who you're rolling with. I think it's okay to say no to people. Like, I think it's definitely okay to say no to people. If you're like, that dude is crazy. Last time I rolled with him, he was just going balls to the wall, trying to rip my head off. I don't feel like doing that today. I think it's okay to say no thanks. Like, I think it's okay to sit out a round if you need to. But I also think you've got to balance that though. If you're like taking off the round because you're like, oh, I'm just a little bit tired, my cardio sucks, then you probably need to do the round. But you've also got to be mindful that if you're going to roll when you're exhausted, that you're not putting your body at risk too, because your timing's going to be off, your reaction's going to be off, things are going to move a little bit slower for you. So you have to be kind of careful as far as like, are you that exhausted that like you're going to get injured, or are you just like tired because you're tired? And then I think you have to make sure that you're doing everything right in your life off the mats so that your time on the mats is going to be successful. So if you come to an open mat and you're like, I haven't hydrated all day, I ate like shit today, I had a crappy night's sleep last night, and then at the end of the open mat, you're like, well, I think my jiu-jitsu sucks. It's like, no, your jiu-jitsu doesn't suck. Your life sucks. You have terrible, terrible habits, and you need to fix all that shit because it's definitely affecting your time on the mats. So whether you're 35 or 45 or 55, doing everything right off the mats is going to make for a more successful experience on the mats. What are you eating? Are you eating good, healthy foods? Are you getting lots of hydration on the days that you're training? Are you taking the right supplements? Are you doing some sort of strength training 3 or 4 days a week? on your off days? Are you stretching at home? Is there some sort of flexibility that you've worked into your regimen? Are you doing all the recovery stuff? What do you do for recovery? Do you stretch? Do you take a day off to stretch? Do you do like an ice bath, or do you do hot baths with magnesium? What do you do like for your, are you getting massages? Have you tried acupuncture? So trying to figure out, what does your recovery look like? What does your off the mat time look like? And then what does your on the mat time look like?
Yeah, there's a lot to consider, I think, as an older jiu-jitsu grappler, right? Thinking about your kind of sparring or your rolling. So it's just something that I tend to do and have done for a little while is I'll maybe spar a little bit more often than maybe I should. But what I try and do is undulate the intensity. And some of that is around partner selection, so avoiding certain people in the gym. But also, you know, the position I might play, maybe guard opposed to top game. You know, I won't wrestle as much. I'll pull guard. I won't get into as many scrambles, and you know, I won't squeeze and hold on things that I might otherwise doing if I'm trying to win. So is that something that you recommend or ever tried?
So you know, trying to slow things down. You know, especially with gi, it's a lot easier to slow things down. You can make it a lot more static. You can take, you know, shorter sprints to positions, like not big moves. Like if you're doing like a bullfighter pass and you're trying to do it on a 20-year-old that moves really fast, like that's a pretty big move to try to pull off on a smaller guy. And then if you do that 3 or 4 times and fail at it, now you're tired, right? Now you're exposed. So trying to slow the game down a lot, being mindful of even like what techniques you're doing. Like I'm a big triangle guy. But I've noticed, like, if I just keep throwing triangles up, my knees start hurting after a while, my hips start hurting. So I try to balance it out, maybe working more chokes, more cross-collar chokes, or more arm choking techniques. So building a game, too, that's sustainable with your body. Like, if you're, like, a total triangle guy, you've got to have some balance to that with, like, are you adding Darce chokes? Are you adding anacondas? Are you doing arm triangles? Are you doing something with your arms too, so that you can give your legs a break? If you're on the opposite end of that and you're like an arm choking guy, then what are you doing with your legs now? How are you going to work that into your game? So finding a game that's kind of balances out both of those. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And how about like warm-ups and cool-downs? Is this something that you tend to do more of now you're a little bit older and that you recommend?
So my hard and fast rule for myself is I won't roll with anybody cold. Like I will not roll cold. I used to roll cold all the time. I'd be like, oh yeah, let's just roll. And the next thing you know, something doesn't feel right. You want to make sure that your range of motion is good before you roll. You don't want to have your legs thrown over your head and your legs forced to the floor and you're not even there yet, or can't even maybe even do that. So I think that, you know, I know some people say, oh, I hate warm-ups. I'm not paying to go in there and do a bunch of exercises and stuff like that. And I understand some schools don't do really any warm-ups. I think it's up to you to make sure you're warmed up before you get in there. Like I tell my students, like you should do something at home for like 20 minutes, get your body warmed up, get yourself loose a little bit before you walk in the door, spend like 30 minutes stretching before you come to class. Again, I won't roll with anybody unless I've put my legs over my head a couple times, stretch out my back, make sure that my hips are loose, make sure I'm just feeling really good for a second before I'm going to even jump into rolling with somebody. So I think it's really important to make sure you warm up.
Yeah, do you think there's any sort of responsibility on the coach there? Because obviously, as you can appreciate, you kind of touched on it already, but some people just won't have the time to take maybe 30 minutes, even 5 minutes before a class. Some people are skidding in straight from work, throwing the gear on, and they're straight on the mats. Do you think there's some responsibility for a coach to create a practice that involves like an effective warm up, whether it's through the drilling or whatever they're doing prior to sparring?
I think it's a smart idea. Like if you want to keep your students, it's a good idea. You know, as an instructor, your goal is to get them, or at least for me, my goal is to get my students to black belt. Like I don't ever say, oh, I want my students to be better than me. It's like, I'm not part of the equation. I want them to be better than themselves. You know, so it's always about like them constantly looking back at the mirror and seeing, you know, that they're improving over time. And part of that is I got to create an environment that's conducive to that. Like I got to make sure that they're taken care of. Like I can't have a 65-year-old guy come into class and just throwing him into like a round, like the second he walks in the door, or some high intensity like drill that's going to, possibly injure him, regardless of whether he's 65 or 25. It just makes sense that your body needs to be warmed up. So I think as an instructor, for me, I think it's my responsibility to make sure that they're warmed up. And I also recognize, like what you're saying, that some people are like literally like going from work straight to class and they're not warmed up. So I always try to leave time to make sure that people do get properly warmed up and their bodies are stretched out before we dive into anything. And also adjusting the frequency for them too. Like if we're starting, I like functional warm-ups. I don't really want to do like jumping jacks and just running around the room or some bullshit like that. It needs to be something that has to do with what we're training that day. So if we're teaching a specific technique or a guard pass, we might be doing some light like pass and sweep or something like that from the guard, but we're going to do it at a very low volume. So I'll tell my students on a scale from 1 to 10, if 10 is 100%, then 1 is like 10%. I want you guys to stay between like 2 and 3 right now, 20 to 30%. And if I see someone who's increasing the volume, I say, hey, you got to turn that down a little bit. We're not there yet. And it's the same thing when I roll. Like, I don't want to roll 100% from the beginning of a round. I hate that. Like, I like the idea of starting here and ending up way up here eventually. Like, we're going to get there, but we don't need to start there. Like, we're going to start with this nice pace, and then we will find our way there. I guarantee it. But we don't need to start there either. And the same thing for a student walking into a class. They don't need to start at 10. They can start here at 1 or 2.
Do you ever believe in flow rolling to warm up?
Say that again?
Do you ever believe in flow rolling to warm up?
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
just like
yes.
moving and flowing and
just exchanging techniques. Yep. And one of the things we do with that is we have them close their eyes when they're flow rolling too. So we have a couple people making sure no one runs into each other, kills each other, but just even closing your eyes for a moment and just removing all the distractions and just getting into that movement and roll is awesome. It also teaches proprioception. So as far as like limb awareness, where are my legs in reference to their legs? Where are my arms? Where's my body in reference to their body? So like if someone's never tried grappling with your eyes closed, like that's a really, really great thing to try.
Yeah, me and Phil used to do that quite a bit during the
Really?
day class. Yeah, he used to say all the time, "Oh, we'll flow roll, but we'll shut our eyes." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll try that," because he's into that all the time.
Is that like the lights off sort of thing with the chick? Is it? He just didn't
Pretty
want to
much,
look. Just didn't want to look at you that early in the day.
I don't blame him, to be honest. Yeah.
You're like, no eye contact. Don't look me in the
gay.
eyes.
It's not gay.
It's like, close your eyes.